What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to Film Theory, the end of Sanchez, Rick and Morty, Season 4 by the Film Theorists. Now, I'm not really sure what to expect. I mean, the title suggests that Rick is no longer, so yeah, I kind of doubt it. I don't think they would kill off him, but I guess we're going to find out. Anyway, with that being said, the original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to the Film Theorist. Without any further ado, let's begin.
Hey, congrats on the first half of Season 4, Morty.
Thanks, Matt Pat. Glad you liked it. It's a show that, takes a lot.
That's a really good impression. Is that you, Matt, or is that like the actual voice actor? Oh, I forget his name.
A lot of brain power to understand.
I know! We have to do another theory on your show.
Oh, jeez, Matt Pat. Haven't you done enough of those already? Really seems like you're milking our franchise for cheap YouTube views.
Tell me again how many episodes Season 4 has?
10.
And how many multi-week breaks have you taken during the rollout of those 10 episodes?
Well, we're on number 3 right now.
So, tell me again, who's really milking this show for the views?
Oh, dang, Matt. Dang, going in hard, are we?
Still you.
Still you.
To Film Theory, the show where we explore all of the infinite realities, and at
Oh, I do not like this reality.
this point, I've made a theory about most of them. You know, I've really enjoyed doing individual episode breakdowns of Rick and Morty this season. I guess you could call it Matt Pat selfish content. I did it because, you know what? I just really wanted to talk about this show with someone other than Stephanie all the time. And luckily you all see
Showing that thing, or that thing with a weird, I don't know, and then showing your wife, I don't know why, but that just seemed wrong. It seemed dirty. I forget what that thing's called. I forget what they called it, but it just seemed really dirty. Matt, this is a family friendly, Matt. Calm down now, Matt.
seem to enjoy those little fast turnaround mini theory episodes too, which was great. I would expect to see probably a couple more of those show up when the second half of this.
Oh, okay, Matt, why do you like Diet Coke so much? This has nothing to do with the video, but I know you like Diet Coke. Do you like Coke Zero? I love Coke Zero. I have it every day. I have a slight addiction to it at the moment. It's not healthy, but it makes me happy. It makes me happy. This is sad. When Coke Zero makes you happy, the things are going downhill. Anyway, Coke Zero just tastes better than Diet Coke. Diet Coke, I find you can actually taste the chemicals in it, which is weird, because with Diet Pepsi, I don't. And I'm talking normal Diet Pepsi, not Pepsi Zero, or whatever the frig they call it, I don't know. But with Coke Zero, something about it just tastes so good. I love it.
The season drops. That said, this is not one of those theories where I spend a lot of time breaking down an individual episode or an individual character or specific moment. This theory is about Season 4 of Rick and Morty as a whole, and where the second half of the season and beyond goes from here. Because more so than in past seasons, there seems to have been a lot of disgruntled Rick and Morty fans out there talking about how this has been a disjointed season. One without a whole lot of focus, no real themes to latch onto, nothing deep being explored, and a parade of toilet humor, shrimp heiling the Third Reich, and like snakes. A surprisingly large amount of snakes. As the user Dr. Lecter put it,
maybe there are all these themes, but you know, the intellect required to understand them is a lot higher than previous seasons.
on Reddit, quote, in Season 4, we're not really seeing those family dynamics anymore. Now the premise is just fan service, cheap laughs, insane antics with no grounding in furthering the plot or the premise of the show, end quote. And I use that quote as an example, but it's really indicative of a lot of the conversation I've been seeing around this season of the show. But is that really true? What is the point of Season 4? Is there a point? I mean, sure, in earlier seasons, the through lines were a lot easier to follow. Season 1 turned sci-fi tropes on their head by showing that when you fix a problem with sci-fi magic, you actually create disasters. You wish your dog talked? If he could, he'd enslave you. You want to shrink down to explore the human body? Too bad you're gonna blow up a giant floating homeless Santa in the process. You want a hot girl to fall in love with you? Well, spoiler alert, she's gonna turn into a praying mantis and try to eat your head, thereby necessitating you to abandon your entire dimension. In Season 2, we start to get real glimpses of just how powerful Rick is, but also the rampant wake of destruction that he leaves behind. Rick fractures time, he upends peaceful planets, he enslaves aliens to power his ship's battery, he sells weapons to assassins, and gets most of his friends killed by the end of those 10 episodes. Fast forward to Season 3, and we see how the damage that Rick causes isn't just on a galactic scale, but also on a personal one, specifically with the Smith family. The unhealthy relationship that exists between him and his daughter Beth has massive...
So are you saying that there is an actual, like, plot to this new season? but it is like my joke, you know, saying that you have to have a higher IQ to understand it.
Ripple effects throughout this season as it prompts Beth to leave Jerry, resulting in the kids struggling with the separation and Rick ultimately not being able to provide the emotional support that any of them really need.
I turned myself into a pickle, Morty! Boom! Big reveal, I'm a pickle!
Until finally they've had
Pickle
enough and
Rick!
Rick is forced to return hat in hand, specifically fishing hat in hand.
I'm fly fishing, Rick.
No, not every single episode necessarily plays into these themes, but overall, Rick and Morty seasons do indeed have arcs, which means that in theory, season 4 should be no exception. So what is the arc here? And if there is one, what's it saying about the narrative arc of these characters? What can we expect when the series returns? Whenever it decides to return, which apparently, according to my Google News alerts, was supposedly January 12th. Then January 19th, then the 26th. Seriously, it got me excited each and every week. Seems like a lot of websites are worse at predicting things than even I am, and that is saying a lot. That said, knowing my track.
Don't put yourself down like that, Matt. I think you're pretty good at predicting stuff, or at least figuring it out. Maybe not predicting. I don't know about your predicting skills, but I think you're pretty good. I think, you know, if anyone can find a theory here, it's Matt.
Record, I'm sure that sometime between me writing this episode and me hitting publish on this video, we're gonna get a trailer that directly contradicts everything that I'm about to say in this theory. So whatever, selfish content activate. In case you need a little refresher on Rick and Morty season 4, here's the fast recap of the 5 episodes we've gotten so far. Episode 1, Rick and Morty harvest some death crystals that show the user exactly how they're gonna die, and when Morty sees a version of him dying with Jessica by his side, he makes every decision from then on to preserve that future, causing a lot of carnage on the way.
Morty, a bunch of us girls were gonna go skinny dipping later if you wanted to join.
No thanks. Must continue moving in ways that lead to dying with you.
Meanwhile, Rick gets himself killed, but keeps on getting resurrected into various clone forms, trying to get back to his original reality. Many of these realities are dominated by fascist animals, but Rick is eventually helped by the wasp version of himself to get home.
We're all in this together. We're wasps, not monsters. Guess I don't have it as bad as I thought.
Episode 2,
I like that episode.
Jerry makes an app, so you know how this one's gonna play out.
What are you guys doing? Did you develop an app?
In an episode concept ripped straight out of Black Mirror, we watch the world tear itself apart using Jerry's date-finding app, Love Finders, which tells people who their soulmates are gonna be, but changes that match constantly. Meanwhile, Rick goes on a hunt for revenge to punish the man who used his super-secret, secluded toilet. What begins as a quest for bloody vengeance becomes a budding friendship when Rick learns about the premature death of the man's wife. A friendship that itself is unfortunately cut off prematurely when the Phantom Cooper meets a tragic skiing accident. Episode 3, we get ourselves an Inception-level heist scheme with Rick building a machine to random...
So I guess Matt is going to go through all these and try to figure out the plot for the whole season. At least that's what I'm understanding.
...heist plans, only to demonstrate how nonsensical and formulaic they are.
Well done, Rick.
Randotron?
I'm afraid not. What you thought was a random non-plan to get to me has been a meticulously choreographed way of bringing you all in.
At the end of the episode, we get ourselves the big twist, that the root goal of Rick's complex heist plans was in itself a complex plan to sour Morty on the concept of heists, since Morty had been working on a heist screenplay that may have gotten him a deal with Netflix, and thereby prevented him from going on future adventures.
I don't know. 5 of my friends got Netflix deals. You could lose him.
I'm not gonna lose him. I'm gonna nip fish in the butt.
Episode 4 is probably best ignored. It's one of the oddest Rick and Morty episodes to date, which is a lot for a show that once turned a character into a pickle. Morty gets himself a dragon who ultimately
That was the best episode correction there, Matt.
soul bonds more strongly with Rick, thereby leading us down a rabbit hole of dragon depravity. Also, Jerry goes to Florida with a talking cat that's presumably more depraved than even the dragon, so we never really learn what the cat's deal is. And in episode 5, Morty gets bitten by a space snake, which he subsequently kills and feels guilty about, leading him to send an Earth snake back to the snake's home planet. When the snake planet realizes that they aren't alone in this universe, they invent time and space travel to attempt to take over the Earth, forcing Rick and Morty to do some Terminator-style time travel to kill the snake ancestors and prevent their dominance.
Why are they attacking us? Gave them proof that there was something bigger and scarier to unite against, you little idiot. They dedicated themselves into making universe-destroying, unthought-out technology like time travel.
Now, that all might seem
I'm sure there's a plot here. Like, I can kind of see it, but I just can't put it together. And I'm trying to get my head around it. Maybe my IQ isn't high enough to understand it. That's definitely a possibility.
random and disconnected, and honestly, it is. Even as I sit here writing and
It is? Like, I don't know. I still feel as if there's something there.
recording the episode, it's like high fantasy to snakes to death crystals to heist plans. It's a weird...
Yeah, you can have all these weird plots and everything, but at the same time, I think there's there's something there that's unique, or not unique, but like similar between all of them.
Mix of episodes, but when you actually take a step back away from looking at individual episode plots, it all points to one common theme, which is ironic because the theme is about the fact that life is just a series of random events. Let me explain. Each of these episodes deals with the idea of fate and whether or not destiny actually exists. Spoiler alert, the show concludes the answer to be no, but let's look at each episode to figure out how I came to that conclusion. Episode 1 is pretty darn on the nose. Rick and Morty pick up death crystals that show you how you're gonna die. If you focus on following one extremely specific path or another throughout your whole life, you're guaranteed to know how you're gonna kick the bucket. It's like literally holding your fate in the palm of your hands. Or is it? As the episode unfolds, Morty blindly follows the directions of the crystal in order to control the one thing about his life, how it ends. In the meantime, he's completely lost control of everything else, down to the direction that he can walk down the halls in school. And even then, as the end gag reveals, Morty's perceived death wasn't gonna play out the way
Yeah, it was a trick the whole time. It was a trick the whole time.
that he expected it to.
I want to comfort the people who are dying, who have no one else in their lives. The real lonely people.
She is describing Charmx, I think.
What?
This in turn serves as our thesis statement for the rest of the season. If you try to control your destiny, you'll lose control of pretty much everything else. This whole idea is underscored by Rick's plot in this episode, where he hops across infinite universes and infinite versions of himself. We're reminded that there are really infinite realities, a depressing number of which are fascist, and the idea of following your one true destiny is laughable in the face of an infinite multiverse. To show us just how futile the idea of control is, we get this example towards the end of the episode. Here, a holographic version of Rick, who has been powerless to do anything to control his own fate for the entire episode, finally gains a physical body for the first time. The first thing he does, celebrate how powerful he is. He can suddenly control everyone around him. He is all powerful. He can move objects. And he's immediately killed by the wasp version of Rick from another universe, punctuating the idea that 1, wasp stings are just totally terrifying no matter what universe you're in, and 2, as soon as you think you're in control of things, you're toast.
There's a lesson here, and I'm not the one that's gonna figure it out.
Don't worry, Rick, I'm doing this one for you. Episode 2 lightens things up a bit with that fun romp through dating apps. And destiny, go figure. Love Finders is an app that supposedly predicts your soulmate. Everyone on Earth, desperate to find answers in their own confusing lives, immediately latches onto this.
I wonder if someone else who watched this took the idea and is now working on something, something similar to this for real life. I wouldn't be surprised.
Idea, showing that everyone is just looking for this elusive idea of their destiny, finding their one true love, the person they are fated to be with, because, well, that would mean that there's a plan for everyone's life. The problem is that people's soulmates keep changing, ultimately ending up being random because there's no such thing as a soulmate, and by proxy, there's no such thing as destiny. Life is random. Sometimes you end up with a winner, and sometimes you're attracted to a guy whose only future is as a telemarketer for diet supplements.
On the off chance that you use the app and there's someone out there waiting for you,
Jerry, I didn't use it.
What the frick is that?
Me? No.
Well, then we're all good, dog.
We also learn a little bit more about how this destiny business applies to Rick and his bathroom habits over in his plot line. Rick's remote shop.
Did you say plot line or plop line? Now that's a stupid joke right there.
Guy pooping habits are a desperate bid for control in a universe where he feels out of control.
You need the same thing I needed, Rick. You know what shy pooping is, Rick? It's a pointless bid for control. You want to take the one part of life that you truly think is yours, and you want to protect it from a universe that takes whatever it wants. It took my wife. It clearly took something from you. We can spend our lives fighting that, or we can choose to be free.
Rick knows, probably better than most, that the universe is random, but has always thought that just maybe if he's smart enough, he can control it. The thing is, his fixation on control ruins everything else in his life. Just like Morty controlling his fate ruined Morty's life in episode 1. Rick
I think a lot of people are like that. They just got to control everything. A lot of people are like that, and it does end up ruining, their life. Eventually.
Rick is desperately lonely. He can't even connect with other people like Tony, who he has a lot in common with, and instead he spends most of his time sabotaging the people and relationships around him. For Rick, relationships present elements that he can't control, like emotional vulnerability, loss, obligation. So keeping these things at a distance is the best way to control his own fate. Interestingly enough, this episode also presents what could have been a lesson for Rick. Towards the end of the episode, Tony decides to not let his need to control things rule his life anymore, and instead he sets out to do the things that he loves to do, that he's been too afraid to do. This could have been an example for Rick about how great life can be when you just let go of control, but it's not, because Tony dies.
Anyways, just wanted to drop these off, and you tell him, the toilet's all his.
Tony died. He quit his job, started living life to the fullest. He crashed into a tree space skiing down Mount Space Everest.
Because the universe is random, and letting go of control doesn't give you any
At least he died doing something he loved.
more control over whether or not you live or die. Season is a downer, but I think you're getting the drift. Episode 3's Incepto heist continues the themes of fate, and Rick trying to control it with an arms race for the most randomly executed controlled heist in the universe. Again, the idea...
Yeah, you can really see a clear kind of plot or, not theory, but, you know, idea forming that is similar with most of the episodes here. I think the whole plot or idea is that you can't control fate, and it really seems like that is what they're going for here.
Here is that it's futile to control your destiny, even for an AI, even for the smartest guy programming AI. It's all wrapped up in a totally confusing A-plot.
You believe what I programmed you to believe.
Yes, because I programmed you to believe that.
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 The whole heist was all just Rick trying to exert control over Morty's future by getting him to turn down a deal with Netflix. Yet another grab for control by Rick. That being said, Netflix, if you have an opening in your schedule now, I would love to share with you my super secret goal of being a game show host. Promise it won't be as obnoxiously edited as The Circle. I really tried to watch that show. I know you really want me to watch it. You've been shoving it down my recommended feed all the time, but man, I watched like the first 10 minutes of it and it's rough. Anyway, episode 4.
What would your show be about, Matt? Do you care, or do you just want to be a host, or do you want to actually have a show that, you know, you're more passionate about?
Keeps the fatalistic, destiny-defying party going by taking every D&D fan's fantasy and ruining it with dragon stuff. Doesn't seem like this one would tie into the theme directly, but it's no coincidence that the show takes the high fantasy themes of dragons and soul bonds and heroic quests and then completely undermines them all. Historically, these fantasy elements appear in stories that have some kind of destiny. Drop the jewelry into the volcano, save the world, go on an epic journey because it is your destiny. You are the hero. In our random, chaotic universe, we use high fantasy as a means of escape because those stories are nice and linear, and they make sense, kinda like the heist stories. But no one in Rick and Morty is the hero, and this isn't a D&D game where there's a dungeon master guiding the story of your character. This is a real universe where your best friend dragon that you were contracted to have suddenly soul bonds with a senior citizen, and it ain't pretty, and it certainly isn't destiny. High fantasy, more like grotesque reality. The TLDR here is your fantasies won't save you, and there's nothing romantic about our story. It's just kind of icky and uncomfortable, just like reality. The last lesson this season teaches us is in episode 5, which is less about trying to control your own fate and more about trying to...
Yeah, see, all the plots here all revolve around, you know, control and, you know, controlling your fate, if that makes sense. So I guess there is, maybe I do have a high IQ after all. I guess there is like a plot, and the fact that other people couldn't see that, because I'm not the brightest person. How could I see that and other people not really see that? Maybe I'm not as dumb as I was originally thinking.
Control the fate of other people, or snakes, snake people, sentient snakes. It's just a weird season, alright? In an effort to control the fate of an overpopulated snake planet, Morty sends an Earth snake to replace one he accidentally killed in outer space. In the process, Morty directly tampers with the fate of an entire species. He changes their perceived destiny. Unfortunately, not only is fate not a real thing, you shouldn't tamper with someone else's because it's gonna come back and bite ya, literally. Over the course of the episode, we see that trying to affect your future, or worse, go back to your past to fix your future, just results in a big ol' mess. The universe is too complicated to tamper with what's supposed to happen, or attempt to control anyone else's future. You can't do it, even if you're a sentient snake, even if you're Rick Sanchez. At the end of our half season, we have a lot of open questions, but one thing we know for certain is that we can't...
Even if the clap of your butt cheeks are alerting the guard.
Can't control the answers. There's no tricking your way into controlling your fate because you don't have one. And on that uplifting note, we're left to piece together what this lesson means for Rick, the people in his life, and the rest of this season. Everything around Rick this season is telling him that there's no controlling your place in the universe, and frankly, his family is starting to tell him that too, directly. Morty refuses to blindly follow Rick in episode 1 by failing to resurrect him, not even listening to his arguments before flying off in a spaceship. Morty knows that Rick will say anything to control the situation, whether or not it's in Morty's best interests. In short, Morty leaves Rick for dead in episode 1 of this season and isn't concerned about it in the slightest. He's also become bored with adventures by the time that Rick and Morty are grave robbing in episode 2. And in episode 4, Morty has to be bribed with promises of a dragon before going out with Rick.
You asked me to cut class and fight robots with you. I said no.
His relationship with Rick, which has been the foundation of this franchise, is on the rocks. He is sick and tired of Rick's antics.
There's no way they're gonna get rid of Rick. That would be just just insane if they were to do that.
Morty's not the only one either. Beth, Rick's devoted daughter, is also finally standing up to Rick's manipulative control over her and her family's life, starting as soon as episode 1.
I don't know if adventures fit into my son's life.
I'm fine.
And again in episode 4.
I'm gonna nip this in the bud.
No, as a matter of fact, you're not nipping anything. If Morty ever gives up on a single dream, it had better be because of his own disillusionment.
This is a far cry from the Beth that we saw in season 1, who was desperate to make sure that her father
You could definitely see progression in the character development.
stayed as a part of this family no matter what. Even as recently as season 3, she still wanted him as a part of the family. But now she's over it. She sees Rick for who he really is, and she's had enough. She's also stepping up in her own life, taking an active role in mothering Summer in episode 2 as part of her new mantra. A role that we have never seen her take on before.
I'm gonna mother you until your 18th birthday, even if I get thrown in prison for non-consensual
Wait, she wasn't already 18?
mothering.
We also
I thought she was already 18 or something.
see Beth reconnecting with Jerry, criticizing him less, making choices that show that she's rebuilding a stronger, healthier relationship with him. Which we all know is not making Rick happy. And though she may be non-consensually mothered, Summer ain't taking any guff from Rick this season either. He offers to take her on adventures, and she couldn't care less.
You wanna go to Boob World, Summer?
Not today.
This sucks.
Again, a far cry from Summer that we've seen in previous seasons. She's more self-assured than we've ever seen her as a pop culture tastemaker.
Or I will tweet and you will be canceled.
And demonstrates repeatedly that she don't need no man or Grandpa Rick to help her make decisions.
Oh god, the wizard must have hung Balthrama.
Can we go back then?
Lastly, we have Jerry. Yeah, even Jerry, for crying out loud, is maybe the most pronounced arc in the series to become a stronger person, less influenced by Rick's constant demeaning. He gets reassurances from
Yeah, and Jerry's quite the beta male.
Beth that they're together for the right reasons in episode 2.
On the off chance that you use the app and there's someone out there...
I didn't use it. Did you?
No.
Well, then we're all good, dog.
And in episode 5, Jerry actively problem solves, even if it's in his own haphazard, Jerry-esque way, refusing Rick's help to show Beth that he can function on his own and not giving in to Rick in situations where he would have previously run away to a Jerry daycare.
Jerry, I'll tell you what, because it's Christmas, I'm gonna do you a favor. I won't let you die, and I won't tell Beth that you almost killed yourself.
Sounds like a win-win to me. If I survive, it'll be without you. And if I die, it'll be on your ass. Merry Christmas, baby.
Long story
What is that censor? Squawk!
Very short, the family is moving away from Rick. 4 seasons in, the family finally recognizes that Rick's tight fist of control isn't for their own good. He isn't some benevolent genius force of the universe. He's just a lonely, depressed, drunk jerk, and they're all done tolerating it. That's why throughout these 5 episodes, Rick is either alone or finding a new companion in most of them. He's alone in episode 1, he's alone again.
Lonely, depressed, drunk jerk. In a few years, I can see myself fitting that description.
Searching for Tony's friendship throughout episode 2, he's reconnecting with old friends in episode 3, and he's spending his time with Bartholomew, the dragon, in episode 4, completely disconnected from his family proper. As we head towards the back half of the season, my money is on the storyline of Rick becoming more and more isolated as his family loses interest in his antics.
It does seem like that. But I don't think they would totally cut him out as a character. You know, maybe at the end of season 4, he is kind of cut out. But in season 5, if there is going to be a season 5, I think there is. I think they're renewed for a couple seasons. But, you know, and maybe in season 5, they start patching their relationship up as a family again or something like that. Like, there's no way they just cut him out totally, you know?
And his weird novelty, because the guy's just toxic. He's self-destructive. He's a vortex of sadness that'll eventually get himself and anyone near him at the time killed. They don't need him anymore. Rick, for his part, has abandoned his family in the past, but this time it looks like the family will be the one abandoning him. Or probably more likely Rick will see this happening and just leave first so he can get the last laugh and say he was the one who chose to leave. If the theme of the season
that seems about right.
It seems likely to end with Rick completely broken off from the Smith family, alone with no one and with nowhere to go, which in turn
you can definitely see the plot here, or the morals and whatnot behind it. I don't know what people are saying that there is nothing in this. Maybe it's a little bit more subtle than previous seasons, but there's definitely, like, it's very clear to see. Definitely with Matt, you know, guiding. It's very clear to see.
Turn sets up the next season as his quest for either character growth or the hunt for a replacement family. So say what you will about...
They would not replace the family. It's probably character growth, and then it gets back together with the family. There's no way they're going to cut off the main characters of Rick and Morty, you know?
Comedy of the season or the overall episode structures. They're not my favorite, but they're also probably not the worst. Oh no, episode 4 is probably the worst. But anyway, the rest of them are pretty darn good. I love the toilet episode. But one thing that you cannot say is that the season isn't forwarding these characters, their growth, and their story arcs. They've changed dramatically throughout this season from where they started in the first place. And Rick, as the one who is slowest and most resistant to change, is looking like he's gonna get left behind. Rick and Morty has never wanted to beat the message over your head too hard, which is one of the things I like best about it. But regardless of what comes next, you can bet one thing: I'll be there to break it down, selfishly. Selfish content for the win! Selfish content that at the end of the day is still just a theory.
I don't really think this is a theory, though. Like, you're just pointing out kind of facts. The only really theory-ish thing you would say, or I would say, is that an actual theory is you saying, or suggesting that maybe by the end of it, you know, he'll be totally broken off from the family, and that's believable. But that's the only theory. The rest of it was just kind of just pointing out the facts. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. I really like this, and I definitely think Matt's correct. By the end of, you know, season 4, it does look like Matt, or not Matt, Rick will be secluded from his family, or is that, I don't know if that's the right word, but he will have left his family probably at that point. And yeah, I can only assume in season 5 is if he is, you know, left his family at that point. In season 5, maybe then they'll start patching things up as the family. Something like that. That's what I think is probably going to happen. But yeah, it's quite easy to see the plot or message through this. Definitely with Matt guiding me along. And yeah, I don't know why people were saying that there is nothing, when obviously, yes, there is. But yeah, anyway, I hope you guys like this. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up if you're new. Hit subscribe to join the family. Make sure you guys go subscribe to The Film Theorist. That link's in the description. And yeah, I think I'd rate this theory out of a 10. I don't know. As I said, most of it's just pointing up facts. The little theory that was there is very believable. So for that, I'd say probably make me like an 8. But yeah, with that being said, see you guys next time. Boop!